Hello. Please have a seat, enjoy, relax. We have a lot to go through. Very little time to talk to you about a lot of different things. And I'm just going to speed through it in the hopes that I will have time for Q&A later. I'm really interested in the negative questions the most. So if you have any concerns or negative feedback or constructive criticism, please feel free to ask very aggressively so that I can kind of ideate on the solutions to the problems that you've identified with you. So my name is Bruno, and I will be talking about NFTs 2.0 with RMRK. RMRK is the most advanced NFT protocol in the world. And whoa, like that's so cocky, right? Who is this funny-shaped person that is so cocky on stage? Well, we can actually go a level further. RMRK NFTs are to current NFTs what Ethereum was to Bitcoin. So arrogant, right? But you'll see why. It does make sense when you look at it from a perspective of what this stuff can do. And this is what I want you to critique with me. This is what I want you to kind of be critical about. We have been in production for a year, but there's this little niche environment, this little niche ecosystem called Polkadot and Kusama, where we have been test driving this that nobody has heard of and nobody uses. So we are now expanding everywhere else to EVMs and Rust-based chains and so on. And soon we'll have the true test. Anyway, my name is Bruno. I started in Ethereum in 2015 and then worked my way up through Ethereum 2.0 and then through the Web3 Foundation to work on Polkadot and Kusama. You can always reach me at any of these handles. Send me an email, hit me up on Twitter or Telegram. I will do my best to reply every time. I'm like that. This avatar, we are going to explain what this weird-looking thing is, and it's going to be really fun. So, JPEGs. Everybody loves their JPEGs today, and there's actually surprisingly few NFT talks at this conference, which is weird and refreshing. I guess it's the symbol of the bear market times or something, but it kind of feels good to open the conference with this. Sets a kind of a different tune. So the thing I want to talk to you about is that your NFTs can be much more than just digital assets collecting digital dust. Typically, in an NFT project, it's gonna either flop on launch or it's gonna get pumped by some influencer, and then it's gonna flop eventually. There are exceptions, of course. There's your Bored Ape and whatnot, but generally this is the life cycle, and this is because they really are just links to just images, really nothing more. But they can be much more. And so to dive right into it, we have these composable NFT 2.0 Legos that we've built. Each Lego is a separate standalone standard, separate standalone thing, but if you put them together, if you have a UI or a wallet or a portfolio overview manager, whatever, or an NFT marketplace, if you support these 5 Legos individually, you automatically support any permutation and combination of all of these Legos. And that's where the power is, because you now no longer need a Solidity developer that costs you $500K USD per year and 5% in equity just to build your NFT project. Instead, you can click your way through things in a very easy and straightforward way that is approachable to most people and solves 90% of the NFT cases. So, Lego 1, NFTs can own other NFTs. Really simple concept, has not been done well by any other project yet. NFTs can own other NFTs. You can put an NFT into any other NFT on this standard. Very simple. And that is Lego 1 on its own. Done. Next. Multi-resource NFTs. Now that's a little bit of a brain teaser because it's hard to grasp at first. But it is why gamers think that NFTs cannot work in games. And they're right. They can't work in games because the current standards do not support this. You can't go to the moon in a horse carriage, but you can't go to the moon in a rocket. So they are now evaluating horse carriages for their moon trips, which of course does not work. But multi-resource NFTs allow you to do this and much more. So, for example, let's say you have an ebook NFT. That NFT can, at the same time, have different resources. A resource is an output. So you have an ebook that has one resource that's an audio file, one resource that's a PDF, and one resource that is just the cover of the book. So now, if you load that NFT into Audible, it'll just start playing. If you load it into Kindle, you'll be able to read it. And if you load it into a primitive environment that doesn't support any of this, it'll just show the cover. And so now you have an NFT that is more things at the same time that has contextual output. It depends on where you load it, it depends on what consumes it, that influences how it is consumed. So these are multi-resource NFTs. That is Lego 2. Lego 3 are on-chain emotes, reactions. You can send a reaction to any NFT on-chain, and that's basically it. This is a very interesting social mechanic, gamification mechanic, but it's also a very interesting kind of price discovery method, relative price discovery. Because if you have two identical NFTs and one of them has a thumbs up from Vitalik, that one is obviously relatively more valuable than the other one. So this introduces some interesting use cases as well. This is Lego 3. Lego 4, conditional rendering. Now the NFT can, this is a front-end thing only, but is standardized, can react to on-chain and off-chain information in a way that will affect the render. For example, if I have a big snowy mountain and I have another resource of that mountain, that is that same mountain but in the spring, I can say to the NFT, when this NFT gets 50 flower emoji, show the spring version of the mountain. If I send 50 kissy emojis to the Mona Lisa, show her as blushing. If I send 50 rockets to a moon picture, show it as a moon base. So you have this conditional rendering that also can apply to on-chain state of the NFT's properties or even family. If this NFT, if this wolf NFT has 50 children, has 50 siblings in its collection, show a wolf pack instead of a solo wolf. So stuff like that seems trivial, but powerful when combined with other things, and this is another standalone Lego. And then you have NFTs governed as DAOs. Traditionally, right now, as you fractionalize NFTs into fungible tokens, these tokens are generally used for gambling. You don't really use them for anything else, because you can't really use them for anything else. And so the purpose is kind of lost. But here, as you have NFTs that you can frequently interact with, here different things become possible. The nested NFT Lego from the beginning also supports equippable NFTs. And equipping doesn't just mean accessories on avatars, but anything into anything. So I can mint a music NFT that is an empty track with different slots. There's one slot for vocals, one slot for drums, one slot for synth. Somebody can mint a drum track and get the royalty share of every resale of that collective composition. But that same collective composition can be equipped into an avatar to be the soundtrack of that avatar. Every collection is mutually compatible with every other collection. We have cross-collection compatibility here when you put all this together. But then if you fractionalize this and turn it into a DAO-like structure, you kind of have fractional ownership of an NFT where people can decide to collectively make a change, like equip something else, do this, send a child NFT into this parent, and so on. So you can imagine a Twitch streamer having an avatar in a game that is tokenized this way and fractionalized. And so while playing, the token owners can actually issue a command, change the loadout to this for this following raid. And so new interesting cases come about, you'll see. So now let's test this on a chunky funky example just to drive it home visually on a very, very simple example. So let's say there's this chunky character. Let's say we want it to hold some NFTs, some items. So this is how it should look. But if you add items after you've already made the NFTs, it kind of ends up looking weird because you have to know where to crop them and you have to design them in this way. So what you do is, while designing this project, you keep in mind the slots into which other NFTs can go. And therefore, you separate out the fingers. So there's a base and there's the fingers. The fingers are on layer 2, while the body is on layer 1, so layer 0. So layer 1 is where the other stuff can go to fit between these. So now you have this. But if you look at the whole framing of the picture, and if you focus on the flag, that flag is kind of to the right, not centered. And so if you look at it as a standalone NFT, and keep in mind we're talking about NFTs being standalone, but just so happen to be equipable into another collection. So this NFT is going to look weird on an NFT marketplace. It's going to look off-center. So how do we resolve this? Well, we add a new resource to this NFT. And this other resource is optimized for being shown on marketplaces. So now you have one resource that is shown on marketplaces and one that is designed for equipability. So if you end up with a new character called a funky, and we want them to hold the same items, again, it's going to be a little different. Because now the style maybe doesn't match, or the position doesn't match, or the angle, or the size. And so now you have a different flag, kind of, a different render of a flag. Again, multi-resource to the rescue. To the same NFT, we add another resource that is a smaller flag and properly positioned. And now you have one NFT with 3 resources. One for the main marketplace, one for the chunky, and one for the funky. And so now you have this cross-collection compatible item without even knowing that the funky collection is going to come out while you're building the chunkies. It doesn't have to be your collection. It can be somebody else's. Your NFTs have eternal liquidity. Or if you want, you can call it forward compatibility. They can be made compatible with every other future collection that comes out and get utility over time and not just die in your wallet past the first pump. So they can have more utility over time, and the more stuff they're made compatible with, the more their dynamic rarity changes. Right now in Ethereum, if you have like a collection of 10,000 elephants and 4 of those have a red hat, the rarity of the red-hatted elephant is 4 in 10,000. In RMRK, not only can you put that hat onto any other elephant, you can also make a new collection of 10,000 raccoons and make them compatible with the hat. Now the rarity of the hat is not 4 in 10,000, it is 4 in 20,000. With every new collection that's made compatible with this, the dynamic rarity of an item changes. This adds value to your NFT as the entire ecosystem grows. So a nice example of this, where we've proven this concept, is our Canaria project. This was also our fundraise last year, where we sold hatchable eggs. You had to buy these egg NFTs, and you had to emote on them, poops, flags, whatever else. Depending on what you emoted with the most, that influenced what your bird hatched with and what it looked like when it hatched. If you had a lot of fire emoji and you had a lot of fire extinguishers, there's a high chance that your bird would be hatched as a firebird that also holds a fire extinguisher. That fire extinguisher was its own NFT that you can enjoy and sell separately, and that you can make cross-collection compatible with other collections. So the way it works is you have this bird, and you can see here, oh yeah, it's good. So you can see here some items in its inventory, like the jetpack, the trumpet, the martini glass. There are some unequipped ones. There are some non-transferable ones. So we had these soul-bound NFTs back then as a way to guarantee that the value will stay with the bird even if you sell all of its items. So these gems that you see at the bottom of the card, they are non-transferable. They're equipable from the bird's slot for a gem into its backpack, but you cannot move the gem out. And so we have here non-transferable soul-bound NFTs inside of other NFTs, which is a very good use case for reputational systems that use this to give you an avatar that grows over time visually and reputationally. We have 5 use cases of that in production, which I'll get to if I'll have time. So the base parts are actually composed of these different ones: head, wing, body, tail, and everything else. And to them, a modifier is then applied based on those emoji for different elements. Then you have these slots, like back, front, left wing, right wing, headwear, chest, and so on. And to those, then also the modifier is applied, and those will be these interchangeable items, these accessories, that you can trade between on the open market. So if you put that all together, you end up with a lot of funky combinations, and you can check out some of these birds at canaria.rmrk.app. So what is another project? Another project that's really interesting to demo this on is the Mushroomtopia project. Now, this is by a really trippy artist from our community called Ruben. He draws these. He swears he's not doing drugs, but the results speak for themselves. So these, I think, are the first cross-collection compatible, composable PFPs. And what it started with was one mirror. You get this one digital mirror that is one NFT with 3 different resources. One is the soundtrack of your soul, that is a damning look inside of yourself and makes you depressed. 2 is an empty mirror that reflects your empty soul. And 3 is your potential for redemption, where the actual soul is the base for an equipable, composable avatar. And the third one is what's interesting here, even though the whole multi-resource aspect is very, very interesting, because you can see here that you can play the soundtrack in the view of this NFT's multi-resource collection of resources. So you could collect a background, and that background itself has 2 resources. One to be shown on the marketplace, and one to be used in your avatar, like this cult gathering around a campfire. Then you would collect a head that is also a separate NFT that also has 2 resources. One is a cake mushroom, and the other one is just this trippy head. Then you have a body, again, 2 resources, something like a trippy mushroom, and a body for your avatar. Then you have headwear, again, coupled with another resource that represents one of these mushrooms, and so on. You have a handheld. And then what you do is you add one of these components into another NFT, into your mirror. Once the mirror gets this component, you just click the equip button on this item that you've sent in. What you end up with is this avatar that I'm using right now. All of these are composable parts. All of these are interchangeable, or all of these are tradable on the secondary market, and all of these distribute fair royalties to anybody who drew these parts. This is another combination. And they've since launched Solartopia and other stuff with different mirrors and so on, and all of this is mutually compatible with each other. And they're now working with other artists in our community to make all of these collections cross-compatible. And of course, you can make these items equipable onto the Canaria bird. So our flagship project can actually be pimped out with these Mushroomtopia trippy items. All right, so now let's pivot real quick into the metaverse. Why do I say it that way? Because most people have fallen for the scam that is metaverse. There are several problems with metaverses, and I will now tell you why RMRK standards are, and here's another arrogant claim, the only standards that allow a decentralized metaverse to exist. There is no other technology that allows this to exist. This is because of 3 problems. Problem number 1, they're not actually metaverses. Every metaverse today that calls itself a metaverse is just a multiplayer game that replaced username and password logins with reading an NFT balance. You can log into 1,000 different instances of a metaverse with the same NFT. You can sell it while you're playing, nothing happens. There's no digital scarcity. NFTs promise digital scarcity, but there is none. You can reuse your NFT in many different places at once, and it's not even being used. The way it works right now is the team of the game implements that resource, that 3D model or whatever, into their client, and then on their backend, on their database, maps that model to a certain NFT type, which is then recognized when you log in with your wallet, and then the game client allows your camera object to utilize that 3D model that's already pre-built. It's so centralized. There's like five single points of failure in every metaverse. Not to mention that you do not own your experience in this. You do not own your experience in the current metaverses, because once these metaverses start shutting down, as they inevitably will, because the games will vampire attack other games, and players will leave, and players will get bored, those servers that are centralized, all of them, running on AWS and so on, will start shutting down, because there's not going to be a player economy to feed more money into the system. So all of this is going to be gone in a year, most of these metaverses. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can get out and take profits from these, if there's any left to take. You don't, as you stop playing, you don't own anything you've accomplished in the metaverse. Your experience is left on the server and disappears. Everything you've gathered, even if it's an NFT, is just unrelated NFT spam in your wallet. It's not connected to the original NFT in any way. So you end up with really nothing, not much. They're also hard to play. Everybody seems to be focusing on 3D interactive metaverses. How do you get the next billion normies on board when they have to sit down behind a PC and master WASD movement and mouse movement? There is no way. A metaverse has to be hyper-casual if you want the next wave of people to come in. It has to remove wallets. It has to remove transactions. It has to abstract all of that away, and it has to be playable while you're waiting for a bus or taking a long poop. You do not want people to have to sit down behind a computer to play your metaverse. It's nonsense. And they're also very hard to build and plan. Most Web3 teams have no idea how to build long-lasting economies. Everybody just thinks, play to earn, I'll just keep dropping tokens on people. Yeah, you will, and then you will end up like any other DEX copy of Uniswap, where the token just goes to zero over time, because you've spammed the ecosystem with it. It doesn't work that way. You have to have proper sources and drains in your economy. You have to think of it generationally. You have to simulate your environment and game economy over many, many months to come, so that you can avoid this death of attrition. And so they're very, very hard to build, very, very hard to plan, not to mention expensive. You need a AAA game studio to build a AAA game. Otherwise, you end up with low-poly garbage that nobody enjoys playing and just runs around in, and then what? So they're just not good, and this iteration of metaverses is never going to be good. They don't have the way to be good. You can't just slap a custom ape skin on a Fortnite engine and call it metaverse. It doesn't work. So with that in mind, we are building an SDK for this, for solving these problems, called CypherMod. And let me just check. All right, we have some time. So I'll just quickly power through this. As another proof of concept of the RMRK tech, we decided to build Skybreach, which is our metaverse, our fully decentralized metaverse. And it's geared towards hyper-casual users. It's top-down, 2D, pixelated. Very easy to play, very, very comfortable. People are used to it from games like Farmville, like Habbo Hotel. There's that feeling. And it's very easy to use. It's very easy to navigate in. It also carries no penalty for logging out after short play times. So it's very, very approachable. But as we were building this, we realized that we were solving the same problem as another team. And so we teamed up with this team called Fala Network, who are also building their own Fala world. But what they have is a decentralized cloud processing thing on chain. You can already use it to offload your Blender renders to their chain and get back the result. It works, people use it. But also it's good for a replacement as the server running the metaverse. However, you don't actually need a server in most cases when you use a technology like RMRK. And so let me tell you why. So the way this SDK is going to work actually is you're going to start at, this is a weird aspect right here, okay. So you're going to start at selecting the metaverse you want to build for. And that's going to be one of the existing ones that are open enough, or a brand new one of your own that you will make an instance for, basically. Then you will pick the NFT infrastructure. Most people should probably pick RMRK because it's a drop-in replacement for ERC 721, and it's just incomparably better. Then you will pick which chain you want to deploy on. Any EVM chain, any substrate chain, it all works, because RMRK now has a Rust version of their contracts, a Solidity version of their contracts, Ink is coming, Gear is coming, and we are in talks with some more who will write the technology in other environments. Optionally, you pick a DID provider if you want Sybil resistance in your game and not bots. Very, very frequently you'll see games say like, yeah, we have 150,000 daily active users. Really? Okay, sure. So if you want bot resistance in your game, you will pick an optional DID provider, centralized, not centralized, totally up to you. Then you pick a game type, we'll have a library of templates that come with pre-made game economies that can't really crash violently because they're designed that way. You can pick anything from nothing at all and just basically have a Habbo Hotel online to Factorio-style games. So we aim to build these templates for you. Of course, some of these templates will be unavailable for certain metaverses. Of course, you can't really put a first-person shooter into Skybreach, which is a 2D top-down pixel-based metaverse, but you get it. And then you pick where you want to deploy it. Do you want to deploy it on a centralized server like AWS, or do you want to deploy it on Fala because you need a backend that needs to process this information? And then you deploy it. I hope to be here next year and actually click through this for you, and so that you can join me in the game on stage in less than an hour. So hold me to it. Now, there are two games using this SDK right now, and that's the two projects that I mentioned that we merged kind of the efforts of. One is Skybreach, and Skybreach has, our goal with Skybreach is to be completely hands-off in 3 years, which means that we don't want to develop it anymore. We'll let the community take over. Because this is all based on RMRK, it can evolve on its own through that DAO infrastructure of NFTs, because the world is an NFT that contains a piece of land that is an NFT, that contains an avatar that's an NFT, that contains a jacket that's an NFT, that contains a patch or a pocket that's also an NFT. So now, if you tokenize this NFT world, people can vote on it based on what power they have in the world. And they will be able to vote in new avatars, new items, new collections, new skills, new crafting recipes, everything you want. They can do anything from changing a blade of grass on a pixelated screen to destroying an entire skyland. So we have community-powered decentralized world evolution, which we are fully aware can go horribly wrong and can turn into virtual 4chan in a month, or it can turn into a utopia. We never know, but we want to run the experiment. We have this avatar system that is powered by RMRK, because you have true digital scarcity. If you have an avatar and you put it into a plot of land, you have literally put it into a plot of land. The land is an NFT. The avatar is an NFT. That avatar cannot be anywhere else. So you can't log into many instances at once. That avatar is in that plot of land. True digital scarcity. Same with a hat for the avatar. You can't equip it onto a bunch of avatars. You have it on this one. Non-transferable NFTs are used here for skills, recipes, even personalities. The avatar has an NFT brain that is just a regular RMRK NFT that is non-transferable, but inside of this avatar. And it can have skill slots into which you will equip skills, which are, again, non-transferable NFTs that reside in this brain. As you level up your character, you get more slots, and you can equip more skills to prepare for the next post-rest period, like in the old school days of D&D. And, of course, mining and crafting and everything else that comes with it. But what's more interesting is probably the global item economy made possible by all this compatibility. Because, like we said before, with the chunkies and funkies, you now have items that can span multiple thousands of collections very easily without having to modify anything on the existing NFT. You add a new resource that matches the style of the new collection you're making it compatible with, and then you just add utility to it. So the NFT grows as the ecosystem grows. The value of your collection grows. The better the entire ecosystem, the more valuable your stuff is. Everybody wins because the entire pie is constantly growing, and the compatibility just keeps increasing and increasing between all of these projects, with accessories becoming rarer and rarer unless they're inflationary. So the demand just keeps going up for these NFTs as more and more collections come up. You also have this, so I mentioned the Degen score dynamic rarity thing, where you have this effect of being compatible with multiple things, but also you can now take those composable songs, for example, put them to be compatible with a metaverse land, and now that's the soundtrack of that level. You can enter that level and hear that soundtrack play. So it's really quite a powerful concept to have cross-collection compatibility of NFTs, and it's really extra powerful because it carries with it some cheat resistance and some common solutions to some common problems that other games will have. Let's say, for example, you're building something like a Civilization game on-chain. I have a piece of land in Civilization, and I have a unit. And I can only put that unit into that piece of land if I own that unit and if I have access to that piece of land. I cannot spam my units across the map to attack enemies. I cannot cheat. The cheat prevention is in the NFT system already. There's nothing that needs to monitor a backend for my cheating methods. All of this is solved on the NFT layer. Now, when time comes for you to do some backend processing, like calculating what the NPCs are doing, that you will offload to something like Fala. And Fala will do their decentralized calculation on top of that, feed that back into the game, into the NFT state. If it all goes down, you did not lose your experience. All your units are still yours. All the land is still there on-chain as NFTs. Everything you pull out has grown with you. If you got some experience, it is in the NFT. If you got some skills, if you got some upgrades, if you got some buildings, it's all in their various respective NFTs. So you own your experience. It doesn't disappear when the game disappears. It doesn't disappear when the server disappears. And Follow World is the other project using this. They're gamifying Web3 interactions. You have a game where you play, but you don't level up your character by playing the game. You level it up by being a Web3 citizen. So as you use different on-chain functionalities, for example, Polkadot and Kusama are the world's biggest DAOs because you can vote there on-chain for changes to the runtime itself. And people do vote with their tokens and stuff to basically do software upgrades without hard forking, which is a pretty powerful concept, but very few people do it. And so to encourage people doing this, points would be assigned to such actions, and you would get experience points for your character in the form of non-transferable experience soul-bound NFTs in your avatar, which you can then use to level it up in the game. If you do a lot of posting on Reddit and you make a really high karma post on a Web3 subreddit, the community can oracleize that in as experience for your character. So it's gamified Web3 participation by literally forcing you to use Web3 to upgrade your character, which I think is a very interesting concept all around, not just in the Polkadot ecosystem. And so that's basically it. I will take questions if I can, but to join us on any of these journeys, please check out any of these links. So Talisman XYZ is the wallet that you can use to participate with this NFT ecosystem in Kusama. Singular.app is the marketplace on which you can mint multi-resource NFTs. Unfortunately, the nested equippables still need some code to be used because we haven't really figured out the UX for this that is not confusing. And CypherMod.app is the SDK that's coming up. That's it. Thank you very much. Can we do questions? Do we have time for questions? Yeah? All right. Any questions? Yeah, there's someone.
Okay. First, thank you for the amazing presentation. I really love it. So my question is, how are we going to solve the problem with scalability? So if you're going to have millions and millions of NFTs and thousands of users, how are we going to do that? It's going to take a lot of space, and if you're going to have like a lot of transactions, it's going to be delayed.
Yeah. So the wonderful thing about being such a multi-chain, cross-chain protocol that you can deploy anywhere is literally that you can deploy anywhere. So you can always do the ETH growth hack of just moving off of where it's expensive. I don't think that's a long-term solution. So better for us was to develop the SDK in general and the entire contract suite as different implementations that are optimized for certain things. So in the Polkadot ecosystem, for example, you have trustless bridging between all of these different chains that are very application-specific. And so now there's one chain, one prediction market-oriented chain that uses Futarchy for governance and so on. They're using our system for this avatar-based reputation to give every single participant of that chain one avatar that will get non-transferables as reputation as they participate in prediction markets. And also there will be an economy of equippables with it. But they are using our Rust version on the low level of the chain, which means it's super optimized for storage and for for all of this scalability that's needed. These chains are very, very application specific. But what's cool is that you don't have to spam the entire ecosystem with your transactions if you're using a very application-specific interaction of these RMRK NFTs. So actually, it's scalable by default by just being everywhere, because you have these very specific application use cases everywhere. And so now, let's say that somebody built up a good reputation as a future seer on that chain and has a really good performance in the markets. Maybe that avatar itself is such a powerful indicator of them being tuned into the entire market that if you trustlessly bridge that to something like a DeFi environment now, you can get an under-collateralized loan based on that reputation. Your reputation is your collateral, but you're not spamming the entire ecosystem with these transactions. So by keeping it application-specific for wherever you need it and however you need it, that is one scaling method. The other one is we're already in talks with different layer 2s to deploy this on them as well, connected to both Polkadot and outside to Ethereum and so on. So we will be everywhere. But we expect there to be, people will develop application-specific optimizations, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There are no stupid questions. Please ask. Yeah.
Hi, Bruno. Good day. Thank you for your exhibition. It's been quite interesting. You're obviously into it. I catched up one thing that you were mentioning, like develop the product and then just leave it to the users to further grow the ecosystem by itself, if I remembered correctly, right? So question, you were saying that users will have the power to vote for changes, if I followed you correctly.
Yep.
How do you prevent that power being kept only by those users with like something like whales or whatever, whoever holds the majority of tokens, he gets to vote and that's it?
There are many different anti-whale methods on different governance mechanics. We plan to implement what we've seen so far working well in Polkadot's on-chain governance, because that's the most bulletproof one so far we've seen. It's basically the world's biggest DAO that has been running software updates to an entire suite of chains, fully on-chain, by using token voting. There are some anti-whale mechanics in there, like token-weighted voting, turnout-biased voting, maybe applying quadratic voting here and there, and so on. So we have this model in place that actually works in simulations. So it should work well. If it doesn't, we are willing to accept a failed experiment, but we are basing it on a much higher stakes network that has successfully been using exactly this type of governance for a very long time. And so we feel reasonably safe that it's going to work.
Okay, thanks.
One thing I forgot to mention about multi-resource NFTs that's also interesting. If you have an NFT today, mostly because of convenience, it is going to be hosted on a centralized server. This is also the default on OpenSea if you mint, which I think is quite ridiculous. So with multi-resource NFTs, not only can you have different outputs depending on the context that you're using, you can also use it as a redundancy for your NFT storage. We all know that NFTs are just links to images. And for convenience, most of them default to centralized servers that are very convenient. But a resource doesn't tell you, you don't have any limitations on what a resource is. As you've seen with Mushroomtopia, a resource can be a song, a resource can be a video, a resource can be a composable base. In this case, you can have one resource that points to the same image, to the image on a server, another resource that points to the same image on Arweave, another one that points to the same image on SIA, and another one that points to the same image on IPFS. And so now you have ultra redundancy in your NFT. There's no rug pulling that art. It is going to stay, like, it is exponentially less likely that all 4 protocols are going to go down. So you can also use this as a backup method, and still it's compatible with ERC 721, because you as the owner can pick the priority of these resources, how they are shown, which one is shown first. So you just switch them out if one of them goes down, and that is the default that is shown on a marketplace. Any other questions? Yep.
Good morning. I also enjoyed the presentation. It was excellent. Just wanted to ask where your project, what relationship your project would have to, say, an engine, and how you would perhaps solve the riddle of getting the AAA game studios to use a decentralized model for in-game NFTs.
Not sure I caught all that. Are you asking about a game engine as in a game engine, or engine the company?
Engine the project, the company.
Engine the project, okay.
Where most NFTs live.
Yeah. So we don't have any relation to Engine. We've tried to reach out to them. There are some interesting things happening between us, but nothing I can note. The one thing I can tell you is that in the time since we started this project, 5 copycats have tried to hijack these concepts, even in name. None of them have done it the right way. We've been doing this for a very long time and testing it in production, really, launching collections on top of this. And so it doesn't really jive with other projects that are trying to do the same, because nobody's really trying to do the same. There are some of them that try to do one of these parts, but the problem with most projects is that they all start thinking top-down. They think, I have this collection, now I'm going to make it composable and equipable, rather than we have nothing, let's build a base from which everybody can build anything they want, and one of those things can be a composable and equipable. So this is kind of the major difference. Their stack cannot support this because they would have to kind of change everything that they've done so far. And this is why we are effectively, trying to kill ERC 721. It just doesn't make sense in a world where this exists because it's a drop-in replacement. And projects would have to opt into this. Luckily, there's many projects recognizing this and being able to bridge a full avatar with full gear from one chain to the other and still utilize the benefits and not just mint a static IOU of the NFT is a huge value add and something that many projects see as very valuable. So I think we're on the right track there. But we would love to work with as many projects as possible, particularly because of the CypherMod project, which we want to make compatible with any infrastructure, NFT or backend that is out there. So we really do want to kind of have this SDK as one buffet from which you can pick your components and your preferences. So if one of those is the engine NFTs, by all means, go ahead.
Dobro jutro. That's a good morning in Croatian. Fuck.
Good start.
Can you integrate your NFTs to game engines like Unity or Unreal?
I mean, Unity and Unreal are just SDKs for building the visual interaction space of a game. And they have external API calls, and they have a plugin infrastructure. So very easily, yes. After all, it's just writing a transaction from within a certain different engine. So in this case, that's the engine of Unreal Engine or the engine of Unity. But if they just compose, a bit of text, which is what a transaction is, then yes, of course, it works. So without a problem. And that is a key component of CypherMod because you will be able to launch Unreal Engine 5 powered things with it. It should just be able to plug into it. This, as a whole, is a set of open source plugins that anybody can contribute to. It is very much like if you've heard of the Substrate framework for building blockchains, this is the Substrate for metaverses. So you will have your official set of default plugins that you put together and make into this launch, but you will also have a whole library of plugins to pick from that you can just plug into your project, hopefully. All right, I think we're out of time, and that's all the questions, so thank you very much. Wait, hold on. Encore. It seems that the next speaker is not here yet, so I will field any questions you have. Go wild, go crazy. You want to talk about NFTs, Polkadot, Kusama, RMRK, Burek, Rakia, anything. Come on. Stay, play, come on. Come on, don't make me stand here awkwardly. Just ask me a question. Go ahead. I can't hear you. You'll have to wait for the mic.
Thank you. As somebody who's very new to this, so be gentle. We run a startup that's focused on emerging artists. And so artists are very terrified of all of this, but we want to implement it on the back end and make it very easy for them and get to that multi-resource NFT section. And the part that you talked about where you had an artist create the various different pieces was very interesting. And so I guess my question or comment, or I don't know, I'd love some feedback about what would be the best way to start so that the artist isn't terrified and the users aren't terrified, but we know what we're doing on the back end and then connected with the user experience on the front end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. It depends on what you want to do, how much you want to remove the burden, and also what the complexity of the project is. A simple multi-resource NFTs that just is one NFT with different outputs, you can already do this if you go to Singular.app, which is our platform. You get in touch with us, through that, any of the formats, we will actually give you some of the currency of the chain to mint. The $5 is enough for like a few hundred mints, so you can play around. Multi-resource NFTs are mintable directly from the UI there, so you can just click around and test. We can also give you access to a development environment where you basically have free money and you can do whatever you want to play around, to learn. So we have a support structure in place that will take everybody by the hand. For the composables, where you put things together, that's a little bit more complicated, and we are building the UI for this right now. And we have to write some tutorials for it. It's not that straightforward because this is a really complicated tech at its core. It's very difficult to represent this in a UI that is very intuitive. We have some prototypes that we would love to test with normies so that we can see how actually intimidating it is. So I would just encourage you to get in touch, to try out Singular, get in touch with us, and we will try to handhold you to the rest of this. We do have an artist advocacy team that essentially is in charge of helping people get started and kind of try and discover the common pitfalls. All right. So as a final note, we have a nice, interesting prototype coming up where myself and a couple of other Bored Ape holders are going to migrate them over to RMRK and unequip their stuff and make their accessories tradable. And so this is going to be a nice, interesting cross-chain collaboration of high-value NFT projects that were never meant to be decomposed, but now will be. So stay tuned for that on my Twitter? God damn. There we go. All right, stay tuned. See ya.